Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Khoj Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The recitation continues from Wadhans Mahalla Tija, composition of the third Nanak, Guru Amar Das, in Rag Wadhans. It's a long passage, so I would prefer to go line by line on this. So the first stanza for Ratan Padarath Vanajiah Satgure Diya Bujhai Ram. So if you wish to examine or understand that precious essence or substance, Ratan Padarath Vanajiah. Vanajiah is to examine. If you wish to examine the precious self, then Satgure Diya Bujhai Ram. The Satgur has solved that mystery for me. That's what the Guru is saying. Laha labh har bhagat hai, gun meh guni samai Ram. So this is the benefit that was reaped, that was earned. Laha labh har bhagat hai, from devotion. So devotion is the key to examining or understanding the self, which is precious. And you have to go to the Guru. You have to devote yourself to the Satgur. And you earn this profit. And what is the profit? Gun meh guni samai Ram. Gun meh guni. You assimilate the virtues from the source of all virtues, Guni. This is the self. And then you become indistinguishable from it, Samai. Gun meh guni samai, jis aap bujhai, laha bhagat se sare. So, but this is a favor. You can't press the issue. You have to only be devoted. It comes when it comes. Bin bhakti sukh na hoi, duje pat khoi, gurmat naam adhare. So without devotion, there is no peace. Sukh na hoi. In duality, you lose your dignity, meaning you lose your sense of your true being. And the wisdom of the self is again emphasized, realized through Gur wisdom. Vakhar naam sada labh hai, jisno etva pare lai. The merchandise of wisdom is always profitable, but there is a caveat. If only the self motivates one to do this trade, you have to have that motivation. Ratan Padarath Vanajiah ja Satguru de bujhai. So this is a refrain from the first line. If you wish to understand, then go to the Satgur. The second, Maya moh sab dukh hai, khota eh vapara Ram. Maya moh, it's the delusion of attachment to the material world, because the material world is simply a veil. It's veiling reality. So if you stay attached to the external world, the impressions of the external world block your mind from recognizing its own subjective inner self. So the Guru says it's really like consuming poison, because what should happen is that you should be looking at the world through the wisdom of the self, from that inner point. We are, on the other hand, being fed by the senses into a place called the ego. That has to flip. You have to flip that. Baho vadhi vikara sahasa eh sansara. Vices and doubts multiply when you act out of the ego. Pad pad pandit vad vakhanne, bin bujje sukh na hoi. Scholars read and debate endlessly, but without the Satgur, there is no peace. Aman jana kade na chuke. Why is there no peace? Because the illusion of birth and death never really leaves you. And as long as you're living in that illusion, which is another way of saying, as long as you're living in attachment to the world, you'll always have fear of death. And therefore, you will not function properly. This attachment to the world is sorrow. Maya mo sab dukh. It is like trading in counterfeit. Kota eva para. And then ultimately, in the court of consciousness, in your consciousness, in that supreme consciousness that is reflected through you, Sache ke darbara, you will eventually have to test and judge what is genuine and what is false. And in that consciousness, in that divine court, the false ones, meaning whatever has come through the ego is discarded, left standing and crying in despair. Ubbe karan pukara ram. The foolish and the ignorant cry out in distress. Ubbe karan pukara, because they are mugd gavara, because they are living under a delusion. And they have wasted their lives in ego. Manamukh janam gavaya. So the world has been led astray by the poison of attachment. Attachment simply means you're accepting this sensory data to form your idea of what reality is, ultimately. You're ignoring completely the subjective world inside, where the self is, where the pivot is. You're coloring that. And this ego stands in opposition to that. Manmukh santanal vair kar. Dukh khatte sansara. So it only brings you grief. But then, in conclusion, the Guru says, who can question the self? It is all its play. It does as it pleases. Aap kare kis aakhiye. So nothing else but acceptance can be done. Hor karana kish na jaye Ram. Because the self engages us as it pleases. Jit pave, tit laisi. In that lies its glory, meaning it can do what it pleases. And as is its ordinance, so things happen. Jo tasdi vadiyai aap karai. No one, no matter how mighty, can stand in the way. Varyam na pushe koi. So this self that we are talking about is the life giver, Jagajivan Datta. It is the benefactor, Karam Bidatta, and it is also the dispenser of grace. Ape bakshe soe. And in order to know this, understand this, resolve this mystery, you have to remove the ego. The ego will be removed only when you go to the Guru. Gur Prasadi Aap Gavaiye Nanak Naam Pat Pai. And then you wear the cloth of honor and dignity. In other words, you restore yourself to your primal dignified self. Because the ego is not dignified. So in the end, again, who can question the self? It does as it pleases. Aap kare kis aakhiye, hor karana kish na jaye. You have no option but acceptance. So the very first lesson is submission in the way that life is coming at you. Because that is the first step in breaking the ego. Because when things don't happen the way the ego or you expect, the ego is broken. It doesn't like it. So the Guru is saying, let it break. because only when the ego breaks do you have a chance of a breakthrough. And that breakthrough comes through the Guru. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.